reflection on the Gospel according to Mark, chapter 4, verses 26 to 34. The kingdom of God is like a mustard seed. But why use mustard as an example? As many of you know, I am a gardener, and I can tell you with authority that there are, in fact, smaller seeds. The mustard seed is not even close to the world's tiniest seed, which is the beautiful jewel orchid. And another thing, why mustard plants? As everyone who has ever grown a mustard knows, they're not that big a plant or really very branched. When birds shelter in mustard fields, they are nesting in a scrub of straggly growth, nothing majestic here, not like the mighty cedar. Mustard is not that permanent either. Mustard plants grow, set seed, and die in just over a month. This brief span is nothing like the hardy olive, which endures for hundreds of years. And let's be clear, Jesus could have used other examples. He knew about tiny, beautiful flower seeds, majestic cedars, and enduring olives. And Jesus says the kingdom of God is like a mustard seed, an ordinary seed that acts more like a weed than a work of king's majesty. So let's start there. The kingdom of God. How do we imagine the kingdom of God? We have scholarship, tradition, and art that frames the kingdom of God. Often, we picture the kingdom of God with God sitting on a throne, passing judgment, and basically running the governance of our systems. It's a vision of power that we humans can easily understand. And it sounds like this earthly, power-centered vision was shared in Jesus' day as well. There was then a tradition that the kingdom of God was coming. When Israel would again rule from the throne of David, the kingdom of God looked like a united kingdom of Israel led from Jerusalem, and all those occupying empires would be defeated and probably ruthlessly crushed. In our reading from Samuel last week, I remind us that earthly rulers act like kings and take an unjustly large tax of grain, horses, and human lives. To an occupied nation, like where Jesus lived, the kingdom of God was a concrete political hope, which is a vision of power that we humans can easily understand. Jesus knew this vision. Jesus, the faithful Jewish teacher, knew about the political hopes. He started by saying the kingdom of God and got us all thinking about power. His listeners were thinking about structures of mighty authority. We hear kingdom and we imagine positions and privileges of power, symbols of command and control. We say kingdom of God and we are talking about power. We are talking about power. And Jesus says, the kingdom of God is like a mustard seed, a weedy, short-lived, scrubby little plant with small seeds. If we were filming a movie as Jesus talks, I imagine the reel of images of palaces and scrumptiously dressed courtiers would screech to a halt. There would be dead, dark space while everyone scrambles to reimagine and reassert images that are mighty enough for the kingdom of God and make sense of the meek mustard plant. The kingdom of God is like a mustard seed. When planted, it grows and with many, many seeds spreads like a weed to create shelter for common little brown birds that nest on the ground. That's not human-centered at all. That's not power as we generally imagine it. Creating shelter for small creatures that tuck in under weeds is not how we imagine high and mighty authority. How do we make sense of this. I don't know what Jesus told the disciples when he explained everything. But we do have this clue. Jesus says, the seed sprouts and grows, though we do not know how. The clue is, there is a lot of mystery. There is a lot that we cannot control. The kingdom of God is a power we cannot control. And this week, that is what I invite us to hear and consider. There is a mighty power at work in the world that starts with the smallest of seeds. And what grows from this mighty power is often not recognized by us humans as powerful. It won't look like a mighty cedar, a beautiful orchid, a mighty government dressed in opulent clothing, a mighty power in the world that looks a little weedy, scraggly, and short-lived. And this is when we could talk about the little faith acts that we can do. Little acts of justice, little seeds of kindness, tiny sprouts of healing. But this week, I want us to move in a different direction. Let's give up all personal authority, all control, and just look. Look for the kingdom of God that appears like a mustard seed. Look for the mighty power that seems, well, small and weedy. Look carefully, because the kingdom of God might be short-lived. For example, when someone stops a racist joke or invites a new cross-cultural experience, stop the presses. A seed of holy power was planted. Talk about it. Tell that holy story as the extraordinary event it was. We witnessed the kingdom of God. For example, when we look at the world and see someone feeding the community, not feeding everyone, just a dinner here, a cookie there, and not permanent. This is not solving world hunger, just nurturing God's kingdom. For example, when we go out in the world and see where a city or a citizen has chosen to leave an ugly dead tree so the smallest of creatures can nest and live there. Proclaim God's world. The kingdom of God grows there, and we did not take any action. This is not in our control, but we can see it if we look. The kingdom of God looks like a mustard growing in the world. This week, let's look for the kingdom of God. You'll know it when you see it, because the kingdom of God is like a mustard seed. It appears like a tiny, ordinary seed and acts more like a weed than a work of King's majesty, and the kingdom of God is happening, often entirely out of our control. Let's look for the seeds someone else scattered. We don't need to control it. We can't control the kingdom of God, but the kingdom of God is like a scattered seed growing when we sleep and when we wake up. Let's look for the shoots of God's kingdom.